If you didn't know, there's a shutdown going on. I didn't ask if you cared. I don't think America cares. I don't even think America's aware that it's happening. But there is a shutdown that's taking place. Democrats have completely lost the plot and lost the message. And if the best thing you can do is send Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders onto CNN to say, we're trying to save healthcare, you are failing miserably, especially when John Fetterman is doing the counter-programming and telling the truth. I'm Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. I wore a jacket just for you. Actually, I just did Sean Spicer's show. I wore a jacket for that. The Tres Compadres. Look at that beauty right there from Christoph. Oh, that's a beaut. Let's go do some radio, shall we? Is it day 16? Is it day 17 of the shutdown? I don't think anybody cares. I don't think anybody cares at all. And I know that no one cares because over there on the floor in the well of the Senate, Chuck Schumer isn't really talking about shutdowns.
Now on the young Republicans, another sad chapter in how the Republican Party has devolved over the last few years. It's been 2 days since Politico published a horrifying story revealing thousands of private messages containing racist, sexist, and violent comments from prominent members of the Young Republicans organization. And yet, President Trump and the Republican leadership has remained silent. There's nothing but radio silence from Republican leaders who seem to claim they worry about combating political violent rhetoric.
I'm going to take a moment to tell you right now that what you're about to hear from me is going to get very rough. It's going to be insulting. It is going to utilize language that maybe isn't right for you or your children. Parental consent is advised. Parental guidance is advised. I'm just advising. Did I say hello? My name's Tony Katz. The show is Tony Katz Today. And Chuck Schumer is a fraud. All these people are frauds. You look at Republicans, but you don't look at Jay Jones of Virginia, a candidate for attorney general who said he wants the Republican leader of the House dead and his children dead. You don't look at that. These vile things said in these text messages, back and forth, these private chats. Let's see if he gets into what was said.
The silence from Republican leaders in the face of Hitler jokes and gas chamber jokes is deafening. Where are they? When they don't like somebody who says something on the left, they're the first to criticize them. Well, this is one of the nastiest, most vicious things that we have ever seen written by young Republicans, no less, and the Republican leadership, including President Trump, is silent.
You killed Charlie Kirk and people said, his skirt was too short. Is this really the most repugnant thing? The ugliest thing? They tried to kill Donald Trump and your side said, I don't even think he got shot. The argument, Chuck Schumer, you absolute halfwit, should be that all of this is obscene. Everything written by these morons, and I call them morons, of the young Republicans, or whatever group that they're a part of. And we should be clear, these aren't 17-year-olds. These are 27-year-olds. You are responsible for your actions. It's all gross. It's all obscene. And we should note it. Now, we can go the Matt Walsh route. Matt Walsh said, why are we always piling up on our side when they never do on their side? Allow me, Matt Walsh, you're wrong. We should say that I do not have to defend somebody doing that on any either social media account or in a text group. I don't have to defend somebody, Matt, so unbelievably stupid as to put that in a text message and hit send. I'm not defending those people. Those people have to go sit on the sidelines. Those people are going to be out of jobs. And that's the way that one goes. Defend them? Not a chance. But get lectured by Chuck Schumer, that unmitigated fraud lowlife who lets Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar infiltrate his party, push their anti-Semitism, and he, so-called leader, says nothing because he's afraid of progressives. Nah, Chuck Schumer can kiss my butt. Now, I cleaned that up for radio. And I cleaned it up because it's probably the right thing to do. But every part of this conversation that Chuck Schumer is having is 180 degrees from the conversation I just had with you in the span of 30 seconds. Those men, grown-ups, who wrote those text messages, who were stupid enough to write those text messages, and they are ugly, those group chat messages, they're wrong. They lost their jobs, and that's the way that one goes. Maybe they'll be back in 10 years. What, they can't come back? Of course they can come back. People come back all the time. They come back all the time. I was earlier recording with Sean Spicer. I'm on Sean Spicer's show this evening over there on the First. And I reminded him and everybody who's watching and listening, Mike Tyson raped a woman, went to jail for it, got out of jail and got a one-man show on Broadway and is in movies, and people still call him the champ. There are second acts in America, kid. And these morons today can have a second act where they do better. We have all had a moment, maybe not this public, maybe more public, where we're like, yep, that was a mistake. And then we endeavor to do better. And so we should want that. We should allow for that. We should demand that. That's what makes us better. That's what actually makes us human. The left says one mistake from you and you're out, but they don't even acknowledge the mistakes from them. We need to be able to acknowledge and deal with it on our terms and not allow them any say-so in our lives. Who the hell is Chuck Schumer to even have a thought? You, Chuck Schumer, are making sure that the military doesn't get paid, air traffic controllers don't get paid, and soon congressional staffers don't get paid. You allow bigots to roam freely in the halls of the House of Representatives, and you think it's okay for Democratic nominees to the Attorney General spot in Virginia to say, I hope your kids get killed. Hell, I'd kill them myself. And you don't say word one. You want to lecture to me? Chuck. Bubala. Who the hell are you talking to, son? Who are you talking to? What tough do you think you have? What strength do you think that you're providing here? You think you're making a message that matters? You're such a craven political, oh gosh, that's the word I was going to use, but I can't use that word. You know, the kind of person who gets paid for sex. That you think this is okay? This little soliloquy here in the well of the Senate?
As I said, Republicans never miss a chance to preach about violent rhetoric when it comes from the other side, and of course that should be condemned. But now that it's coming from their own ranks, they're silent. Some Republicans seem to even excuse this vile behavior. This is amazing. The Vice President of the United States, no less, J.D. Vance, dismissed the messages as just a college group chat. Can you imagine if it was a group of people on the left saying some things, if he'd say the same thing?
What J.D. Vance said was that I'm not going to pearl clutch when you can have a candidate for attorney general wishing death on children and wanting to kill them. And we should be clear, there's a difference between some morons who run a young Republican group and a candidate for attorney general. There's a difference here. But I would agree that the vice president was inartful because sometimes he is. Sometimes J.D. Vance misses the moment. It stinks, actually, because J.D. Vance is outrageously bright. And sometimes he gets the moment so perfect, it's amazing. This is one where he didn't hit it perfectly. He's not wrong. I'm not going to pearl clutch while you allow this. I don't let Chuck Schumer lecture to me. I don't let a guy who doesn't know how to make a cheeseburger lecture to me. What the hell is this? I don't let a guy who lets Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, I'll keep using that example. Chris Van Hollen is having drinks with illegal immigrants, margaritas in El Salvador, and you want to talk about these people? Honey, you got a house to clean. You're going to need more lemon pledge. But I can argue that J.D. Vance missed the moment a bit. Not 100%, more like a foul tip when he should have gotten all of the ball. But Chuck Schumer...
A college group chat? Does J.D. Vance really think glorifying Hitler and gas chambers is just a silly joke? Imagine if it came from the other side. We all know that Vance would be losing his mind right now. He'd be all over Fox News, decrying it. But now, since it's coming from his own ranks, he's just excusing it. Despicable, disgraceful, shameful.
Exactly what you would do, Chuck. You know, it's like the commercials. Where'd you get these drugs? Where did you get this? Where'd you learn how to do this? I learned it from you, Dad. I learned it from you. J.D. Vance learned it from Chuck Schumer. All the despicableness that you could be calling out in your party today, you don't. Yesterday, you didn't. On Israel, on the border, on all of it. And you didn't. On the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, on the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and you did not. He learned it from you, Chuck. Don't we understand what's happening here? I think that one should take the moment to say that these 27-year-olds or 32-year-olds or 23-year-olds are morons. And out of these positions you go, and maybe you'll get back to the position, because I do believe in redemption. But if you're looking at the people who want to circle the wagons and say, screw off, they learned it from you, Chuck. They learned how to ignore what happens in their own ranks and only go after the other side from you, from the long history of the Democratic Party doing just that. The long history of the Democratic Party thinking January 6th is the worst thing that ever happened, but not giving a good holy damn when a black woman lost her business in Minneapolis. That's where they learned it from. And we should be clear. I'm on the outside here. They're not going back. I think the way to do it is the way I just did it. I think the way to engage these things that more connects with the American people is the way I just did it. But they're not going back. You know why, Chuck-a-luck? They learned it from you. They learned it from Nancy Pelosi. They learned it from AOC and the bigot Rashida Tlaib and the bigot Ilhan Omar. They learned it from Barney Frank. What was the name of the Kennedy? What's the name of the murderer Kennedy? You know, who left Mary Jo Kopechne to die. Which Kennedy was that? No, not Robert Kennedy. Not John Kennedy. What's the name? Teddy! He was the Lion of the Senate, right? That murderer. What about Robert Byrd? Grand wizard, grand priest, total bigot of the KKK? Personal hero? Learned it from you, Chuck. I don't like it. I don't want it. And I have put forth my argument about how these things should be discussed. But listening to you, as the vice president said, as JD Vance said, clutch your pearls. Bitch, please. We're not interested. You have no moral high ground. And if you want to know why the political right is acting in a way you find reprehensible, we learned it from you. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Yeah, I got to get that volume leveled out. Sarah, I got to pull that. Yeah, we're going to have to pull those and get the volume re-leveled. Just the way it's going to go. Guys, good to be with you. Tony Katz Today. I hope you liked the opening there. We will see. Could not remember for a second there, Ted. Could not remember Ted Kennedy. Just couldn't remember the name. The guy was in my head. Mary Jo Kopechne, I could remember, but Ted Kennedy, I couldn't. I went full Biden right there. That can't be good. That can't be healthy. That cannot be good, healthy, or valuable. Anyway, glad to be here. Good to be with you. I got told today because I stand in opposition of something the Lieutenant Governor of Indiana said, that I am persecuting Christians. That's a first. I have not heard that before. Okay, I got to deal with that later. Meanwhile, you tell me what you guys got. I'm listening. Happy to chat. Happy to share. Is every reel on Facebook now just some kind of porn, Producer Landon? This is getting silly. This is getting very, very silly. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Just had to get some audio together. You don't need that, but I'll do that. And that's how I do it. I'm figuring out some more about the screens. Anyway, I'm glad you're here. Tell your friends. Let's grow the thing out. Let's have some silliness. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, what we found in this study is that in some ways the Paris Agreement is working, and yet progress isn't nearly fast enough to meet the ultimate goals of the agreement. So when the agreement was signed by most nations back in 2015, the idea was that countries would make pledges to reduce their emissions, to limit the amount of future warming the planet experienced by about 2 degrees Celsius.
I am stunned that this madness hasn't just faded away and died its proper death. Tony Katz today, good to be with you. There's still climate madness. There's still a belief that the Paris Climate Accords are something of value as opposed to a tool that can be utilized to subject the United States to the whims of globalists and socialists, which is, well, the desire, which is why President Trump was right not once, but twice to pull out of the Paris Climate Accords. We should have no part in it whatsoever. This woman is the vice president for science at Climate Central. I want that title. Can somebody get like with a what do you like Photoshop? Can you get me a degree and make me the vice president for science at Climate Central? Not a degree, some kind of a plaque. I need something that calls me the vice president of science at Tony Katz Today. That's a title. My gosh, you get what? How do you even argue with that? The vice president of all of science? The only thing greater than that would be the president of science, then possibly the chief of science, the capo de tutti capo of science, and then the el jefe of science. That's peak science. That is peak science. And then actually, there's one step above that. It's like being a 6-star general like George Washington, the beaker of science. Talking about the guy from the Muppets. That's the even bigger than Bunsen Honeydew. It's bigger than that. And so she's talking about the Paris Climate Accords right here.
Now, the pledges that have been made to date by those countries wouldn't get us to that 2 degrees C mark. Rather, we'd see a warming of about 2.5 or 2.6 degrees Celsius. And that's if all of the countries actually meet their stated pledges, which many are not on track to actually do. That said, before the agreement was signed, we were on track to see 4 degrees Celsius of warming. So the pledges that have been made as part of this international agreement really are bringing down the amount of warming that we expect to see, so long as countries actually meet those pledges and then ideally strengthen those pledges and enact the policies they need to limit future warming to 2 degrees C.
Let me try and translate that a little bit, if I may. We made up a number, then we saw another number, and then we said that other number was not good enough, and that other number will never be good enough because we're always going to change the first number to force everybody to change the second number, so it's never good enough so we can keep fundraising. Do I have it correct? Do you think there's ever a moment where the vice president of science for Climate Central is satisfied? I put forth to you the answer is no. Not until you're eating bugs and only lighting a candle 3 hours a week. What else could satisfy? Every time they talk, every time, the cult feeling just washes over you. I'm Tony Katz. Doesn't have to be like this. By the way, where is it? Hold on. Tony is saving us by buying a Mach-E Mustang. That's the electric Mustang. 2 things about the Mach-E. First, worst name in history. It's not a Mustang. And to call it a Mustang is an obscenity before the Lord. That said, really fun car. They did a very good job with it. Now, I have a local Ford dealership where that is a sponsor of mine. I drive right now. It's in my driveway. The Lightning, the F-150 electric. It's unbelievable. I that's all I would drive. It's that good. It's sensational how good that truck is. It's not for everyone. I work from home. It perfectly fits a lifestyle. Price-wise, good Lord. That's not, well, none of the electric vehicles, although everything's coming down now because the subsidies are gone, so things are going to change. But oh yeah. Oh, it's fantastic. And you're going to be like, Tony, it's electric. The Lightning is terrific. Not only is the speed nuts, outrageously comfortable, the drive is the whole feel. And something that you can put it in a sport mode, but it's so perfectly comfortable. It is very much how I like to drive, how I like to be. It's very cloud-esque, like driving on a cloud. But not, I get that's not for everybody. So I have zero issue with electric. I have an issue with forced electric. But calling the Mach-E a Mustang was a sin. Just ridiculous. Anyway, let's get back to the show. Let's get back into it. I'm gonna keep a lot of angry people on the social media. Admittedly, if you spend real time on social media, you will go mad. You will lose your minds and lose your soul. So yeah, I'm watching this video of Mitch McConnell, who did indeed fall. So Mitch McConnell's story is that Mitch McConnell, I believe, had polio as a child, and so he has always had these balance issues. This isn't new. He's also in his 80s, and he's leaving the Senate. This is it. Clearly it. His career is done, and I hope he's happy. And for those people always angry at Mitch McConnell, I think there are plenty of things to be angry about. That guy looked Merrick Garland in the eye and said, I am not even going to consider bringing the Senate together for a confirmation hearing for you to the Supreme Court. Have a nice day. And for that, Mitch McConnell deserves a small plaque somewhere, because that was tough. Good man. No, Mark, I am not going to get a Borla exhaust for the Lightning, but I do have a Borla exhaust on the Miata, on the 99 Miata. Sounds so good. And I'm not really that guy. Well, it's not true. I do like the sound, but I don't want the overwhelming stuff. This just sounds beautiful. The exhaust has tone, it has richness. It's great. Just terrific. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about next, but that's all right. We'll figure it out. Let's get back to the show. As I said, day 16 of the shutdown, there was an interesting bit of data. God, I'll try and find it for you. Trust me when I say I saw it. That's the best I can do. That 25% of Americans don't even know there is a shutdown. I 10,000% believe that number. What made that number even more incredible is that it was up from last week. How? How is that even possible? Tony Katz today. What are you doing, everybody? 833-468-8669, 833. Got Tony. You know what? I never open the phones. I never do it. But allow me to open the phones. I used to do back in the day. I used to do this on Fridays. It was Ask Tony Mostly Anything. I will answer mostly any question. You can ask me about anything. Anything you want. For example, what am I smoking? The Christoph Tres Compadres. I love this cigar. A nice bit of spice to this thing. I think it's done very, very, very well. You should smoke them if you got them. But I rarely do open the phones because I'm into the thing, talking about the thing, I'm sharing about stuff. I don't always think about it, to be honest. So I apologize for that. So let me open the phones. Email Tony at TonyKatz.com as well. There's a grand jury, right? So we've got a shutdown that no one cares about, and I'll talk more about that. There's a grand jury that is meeting to decide on the charges for John Bolton. As we know, the former ambassador to the UN, former NSA to President Trump. This isn't political retribution. Just because the Trump administration does something doesn't make it political retribution. That's not the case. Because the case against John Bolton came from the Biden administration. They raided his home in August, his home in Bethesda, Maryland. They were looking for classified records. And as we know, we've talked about this before, this stuff drives me batty. When I see people in positions of power having classified information where they shouldn't, I want people to go to jail. I want them to be punished. Now someone's going to say, oh, so like Trump. I was infuriated that Trump had the stuff in Mar-a-Lago. Then you hear two stories. First, the Secret Service said, hey, take the stuff back. And the Trump team said, well, what are we supposed to do with this stuff? And they said, well, we don't care. You just take the stuff. But you know what? If you want to put it there, we'll get you a lock for it. And in Mar-a-Lago, it went. The second part of that is that he was president of the United States. And the president can declassify anything the president chooses to declassify at any time. There is no board. There is no perfunctory that has to sign off. He is the chief executive. He can declassify anything he chooses. So I do find myself agreeing with the argument that the act of removing the document itself could be seen as the declassification of the document. So on a legal, he can do it. Do I like it? Nope, think it sucks. When former Vice President Mike Pence had classified documents, he immediately called the FBI and said, just found this in my study. You know, he had already moved back to Indiana. Drives me crazy. Joe Biden, jail. John Bolton, jail. Not only did he have the classified documents, he was sharing the classified documents because he was using them to write a book. Jail. And I don't want that story left out there hanging. Just like I don't want the story about the media and the Pentagon hanging. So 2 days ago, I discussed this. Maybe it was yesterday. I don't remember. There was the story about how the Pentagon is changing their media rules. And media are up in arms about this. And they're like, we're turning in our badges. And so this happened yesterday where Pentagon reporters said, nope, not covering the Pentagon anymore. They refused to accept these new restrictions on their work. The restrictions, they say, is an unprecedented message of intimidation. The Pentagon is saying we don't think that that is the case. And so this brought about a statement from Sean Davis over at the Federalist. I like the Federalist as a site. I like the fact that they are tough as nails. I've had Sean on the show before. I like him. We might disagree on some things, but I haven't read anything from him over the past year. I haven't specifically seen any post from him that comes to mind I have probably in the past year asked him to be on the show, and it hasn't worked out. I don't think he's been on the show in over a year. They put out a statement from the CEO of the Federalist, Sean Davis, and from editor-in-chief Molly Hemingway, who you often see on Fox News. When other credentialed outlets and journalists spread lies about the Russian collusion hoax or the Covington kids hoax, remember that? Oh, look at them mocking a Native American. That never happened. That Native American banging the drum in Nicholas Sandmann's face. What a lowlife that guy is. And I'm glad Nicholas Sandmann sued. He deserved it. What the press did to him is disgusting. Oh, he's got a punchable face. 17. Or the Kavanaugh rape hoax. Remember that happened with, what's her name? The woman who looked like every moment she was so scared she was going to wet herself. Couldn't remember a party that nobody was at because it didn't happen. Or the Ukraine impeachment hoax, they write. Or the COVID-19 natural origin hoax. Or the peaceful BLM riots hoax. Or the suckers and losers hoax, right? Claiming that President Trump called our military suckers and losers. Or the Hunter Biden laptop hoax. Or the Biden's brain is totally fine, you guys hoax. They continue. The Federalist fairly reported the truth. Corrupt corporate journalists published lies and regurgitated regime propaganda and were given awards, which is true. We published facts and the truth, and the U.S. federal government responded by waging a global war of illegal censorship against the Federalists. They profited from lies while we were punished for reporting the truth. And they make the first part of their argument is, where were these First Amendment defenders when we were going through this? Which is a very, very valuable statement and very worthwhile. Now, it doesn't mean it connects. But it is a good question of the people who claim to be in favor of free speech. Where are they when the fight is necessary? Where are they to defend the speech of the people they abhor? I say, as clear as day, that Louis Farrakhan, that Jew-hating, woman-hating, white-hating bigot, has the right to say anything he wants to say, including all his bigotry. I've never called for him to be silenced once a day in my life. And I do that to ensure that I can say that guy is a Jew-hating, white-hating, women-hating bigot. Because based on his commentary and my assessment thereof, he is. And that's how it's got to work. And the defense is necessary. They believe that the skepticism of corporate media's ostensible new love of press freedoms and the First Amendment needs to be checked. Because, quote, we actually read through the new Department of War media access guidelines, and we found zero new restrictions on the ability of journalists to report on or criticize the government. Many corporate journalists eager to grandstand will claim otherwise without evidence, but we will show you what the document actually says, and they go about some quotes. Nothing in this document requires you to waive any constitutional rights. This, in brief, constitutes a description of Department of War policies. Members of the news media are not required to submit their writings to the Department of War for approval. This, in brief, and its appendices address Department of War policy and the potential basis for such a determination, and do not prohibit you as a credentialed holder from engaging in constitutionally protected journalistic activities such as investigating, reporting, or publishing stories. The argument, I believe, was if you were to access something or be given access to something that should not be published, whether classified or unclassified, what the Pentagon was saying is it'll prevent you from having access. And to that point, I said, if you're a reporter, a journalist, given access to something, you have to make the call on whether or not you're going to publish it. What if it is a secret that would harm Americans? Do you publish it? What if it is the proceedings? Here's the plan to go name that terrorist. Do you publish it? You would prevent the United States from achieving a strategic goal. You would possibly put military and others in harm's way by letting this information out. You're the journalist. How do you handle that? Which I think is a worthy conversation. And that's where I discussed it. And it says, my signature represents my acknowledgement and understanding of such policies and procedures. Even if I do not necessarily agree with such policies and procedures, signing this acknowledgement does not waive any rights I may have under law. And so what the Federalist argument is that nothing here has changed. And I think they have now put enough out there to make us ask, what is it that we're seeing? And is the response from the media legitimate? And will we see them all come back for their press passes 9 days from now? I don't know. Also, I would take my own look to see if the Federalist is 100% right, because trust but verify. But I like that they put an argument into the space and said, hey, whoa, whoa, whoa. Here's a way to look at it. We need more of that. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. Talking to producer Landon about the Indianapolis Colts, Josh Downs will probably be out with a concussion. And we're like, when did he get a concussion? And the answer is, I don't know. Anyway, so good day so far. Nice, relaxed, and easy. So Caldwell, where do they roll? Caldwell makes some really interesting cigars, and they've got some very, very cool packaging. But I don't know where they do the Blind Man's Puff. Really, really groovy stuff. It's a beautifully artistic presentation that they do. Blind Man's Bluff, Blind Man's Puff is a website. Blind Man's Bluff, and they do The King is Dead. Really, really groovy. But I'm not sure where they roll. So that's my question. Anyway, nice pick. Nice choice there on the cigar. Excellent work. What is breaking in the world right now? Make sure I bring it to you. Oh, sure. 10th time's a charm. 10th time is the charm. You got it. SMRs. It's about time. Small modular reactors. This is the future of energy and needs to be a great conversation in a world where somewhere where you don't want it to be, a data center is coming. Tony Katz today. Great to be with you guys. These SMRs are basically small nuclear reactors. News Nation with the story that the U.S. Army has launched a program to build microreactors to power military bases nationwide. Now, this needs to fold into a story regarding Chinese nationals or any foreign national who owns land near a military base. That land needs to be taken. And before you say to me, well, what about property rights? Foreign nationals don't have property rights. Americans do. You want to fight about this? We can fight about this. What kind of crazy are we discussing here? You're a Chinese national. You're allowed to own land near a military base where we've already seen how people utilize proximity to take down communications and a whole host of violent acts. We've seen how drones can be utilized as weapons of war. No. Why would anybody ever think that's okay? Well, the Constitution says it doesn't say it for Chinese nationals. It says it for American citizens. As a matter of fact, it says to the Chinese national, and I'm quoting here, screw them. By the way, you can put anything in for Chinese. And when we say Chinese, we mean communist. We mean the Communist Chinese Party, which is absolutely at war with the United States and wants to do great damage to us. Why would you ever give them this opportunity? Are you mental? Nope. See, I said that wrong. Not you. You're fine. Are they mental? And the answer is somewhat yes. So one of the things that what has to happen is not just in its military capacity, is we have to ask ourselves if the power grid is already old, if the power grid is already susceptible, why in the world do we keep focusing on and relying on an old susceptible power grid? I believe my grandmother, Ethel, rest her soul, said it best when she said to me, Tony, that's just stupid. That's what she said. And let me tell you, Ethel, she understood. We should be engaging in what are known as SMRs and in these small nuclear reactors. Now, someone's going to say to me, oh, great. Now you want to bring nuclear to the United States? Yes, I do. Did you forget about 3 Mile Island? No, I did not. You want to talk about technology from the 80s or technology from today? You want to talk about the redundancy systems in nuclear that have been outrageously effective? We, of course, should be looking at this. Rely on what? The wind? That's the answer? It's a terrible answer. If you take a look at data centers, one of the biggest problems is that the power that it takes, also certainly the water that it takes. But these kinds of things, these kinds of modular reactors can solve that problem. And the data centers are coming whether you like it or not. You just got to figure out a way to power them. You want our military to be dark because someone said nuclear is bad? and you don't want the Chinese to not be next door? Sometimes you're okay with that? Whew, we need grown-ups in charge quick. I'm Tony Katz. Guys, here's what's going on. Here is where we are. Here is what's happening. We are doing you guys know we do a radio show, right? So we've got the radio show going, and then we've got the live stream here. So the radio show is in break, so we'll take the break. Then we'll come back to it. I've got that town hall that Fetterman was part of and Stephen A. Smith was a part of. I have got The View sharing clearly an ABC message that Jimmy Kimmel shared first. And then between Kamala Harris and Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's more pathetic? That is all coming up. But I'm glad you guys are here. Hang loose. We will be back. Smoke them if you got them. The show is in radio break. We'll be in radio break. Stay right here. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Tony Katz today. Good to be here. Good to be with you. Still doing the Tres Compadres here from Christoph Cigars. And, of course, 833 got Tony, 833-468-8669, 833 got Tony. Happy to take your calls. I think my humidor has been off. It's weird. So I had this whole problem the other day, and it was like the compressor was going nuts. I think it has to do with a weather change, and maybe I wasn't regulating the temperature in the studio enough, and so therefore it was having an issue, and so it started leaking water. Crazy! It's a tall standing electric humidor, and lately it's been running out of water like it's its job. And so I'm like, I clearly don't understand the levels to which it's circulating through. So it's going to be a whole bunch of testing over the next few days. Another weird story. So tomorrow I'm out of studio. Kira Davis will be doing the show. I got invited to be part of a political panel with Glenn Beck. I'm like, I don't know why I'm being asked, but yeah, I'm down. I'm in. Sure. So I'm heading up to Fort Wayne, Indiana to do that. And that will be interesting. So I haven't found any place where it's streaming yet. If it is, I will let you know. I will absolutely let you know if you want to watch it. Would love to see what people think of it. In the meantime, we're here. You've got questions. We've got answers. I'm happy to answer nearly anything. Yeah, there might be something that I don't answer, but I'm happy to answer questions. Absolutely. Let me get the audio that I've got here. There's John Fetterman. I've got that. And there's some more Fetterman, which is very important. And then the ridiculousness of Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. Is that the same as that? Yep, that's what that is. And then I had, where else did I have? Oh, I had Stephen A. I had Stephen A. Smith. I'm not the biggest Stephen A. Smith guy in the world. I know some people really like his work. I don't find myself doing that, but this was, I think, well put together. And a lot of people have commented on it, I think, accurately. So I've got that. I will bring it to you. Let's go do the thing.
Well, if you're thinking about winning the election, and so now that's all going to come down to 7 or 8 states. And that's really that matters. And I would like to remind everybody, because we all know that Trump ran the table, all of those kinds of states. And now you can't ever forget, these are the states that are going to determine who's going to be the next administration. And now a lot of the things, the extremism that people turned their back in 24, and that's how we kind of came up short. I campaigned for thousands of miles across Pennsylvania for Vice President Harris. And it was going to be incredibly difficult. You could just feel the energy there. And people really have connected there at a very fundamental level. And that's what I tried to explain to my party. And I'm trying to explain to the party right now. It's like, this is why we lost. And this is where we need to be to continue to win for these things. And there are parts of extreme things emerging clearly on those things. And that's why I refuse to follow that, even if that is going to cost me support in parts of the base.
It absolutely is costing John Fetterman support in parts of the base. His whole conversation yesterday in that town hall on News Nation at the Kennedy Center. There's no question that the reason the story is today in Axios that the Democrats are looking to get him out. He's not following along. He's not doing what he's told. He is not progressive enough Tony Katz today. Great to be with you. Great to be here. 833-GOT-TONY. Call in, be a part of the show. Tony at TonyKatz.com. Twitter X, Tony Katz. Instagram, Tony Katz. And Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. Connect. Join. Come on. Happy to hear from you. John Fetterman is a leftist. He is. You take a look at his voting record. Absolutely left. But John Fetterman has committed two cardinal sins. John Fetterman has honestly addressed the issues with the Democratic Party, the radical extremism within the party, and the false statements that get made repeatedly.
Party wants to do, and I follow country, then party, and it's the wrong thing for the country in a period of chaos. I refuse to vote to shut our government down. I absolutely would love to have I would love to have a conversation about extending the tax credits for health care. Absolutely. But I would remind everybody, too, this was designed by the Democratic Party to expire at the end of the year. This is not something taken from by the Republicans. They were designed to expire. Now let's have a conversation to extend it.
John Fetterman just told the truth. And as you know, the truth will not set you free. The truth will get you fired. Yeah, that's a cynical way to look at the world, but tell me I'm wrong. The Obamacare subsidies are set to sunset at the end of 2025. You know who said that? We did. You know who's been saying that for 3 weeks now? We have. You know who voted for those subsidies? Democrats. When they voted for the Inflation Reduction Act during COVID. You know when they said those subsidies would sunset? The end of 2025. They voted for it. They voted for it. They know exactly what's going on. And now John Fetterman, yes, the guy who had the stroke, he is honestly addressing the situation. Keep the government open, then let's talk about this thing. But let's not act like Republicans are doing this to us. We did this to ourselves, which is the honest approach. And honesty does not get rewarded. Honesty leads to front page stories over at Axios about how Democrats are trying to remove you from power. In addition to this, he engaged a very, maybe eye-opening, clear-headed, one could say, but certainly thoughtful conversation. I know what you're saying. This is the guy who had the stroke, right? Right? We've got people in the chat room saying, hard to believe Fetterman is the voice of reason for the Democrats. I'm going to kind of turn you a little bit on this one. We say that because of the stroke. And I would argue it's hard to believe it's Fetterman based on his own past politics, certainly how he ran for office against Mehmet Oz. But maybe the question would better be asked, who else did you think would be the voice of reason for the Democrats? Who were you expecting it to be? If it's indeed hard to believe that it's John Fetterman, whom amongst the Democrats that you know of in the Senate would it have been easier to believe is the voice of reason for the Democrats? And at that moment, you really are struck with I don't have anybody. I don't have anybody. Amy Klobuchar? Don't think I'd see that. Chris Murphy from Connecticut? I don't see that. So I think that the point being made in the comment is accurate. It's Tony who made that comment. Great name, by the way. It is accurate. It is hard to believe. I think the thing that is maybe more telling is the idea of who would it be if it wasn't John Fetterman? It's not that there's someone easier to believe. You see, in the Senate, you could point to a Tom Tillis. You could point to a Todd Young. You could point to a McConnell as people who are viewed by the right as more moderate or more squishy sometimes. Republicans can show you that. Who do you have in amongst the Democrats? You used to, because you could have said Joe Lieberman, who was Al Gore's running mate in 2000. Most recently, you could have said Joe Manchin. Those people are dead or gone now. There is none of that exists anymore. Just as a matter of comparative conversation, there is no big tent in the Democratic Party. There is only a room for one type of person in the tent: the people who pass the ideological test. And the ideological test gets more and more left-leaning every day. But going back to Fetterman at this town hall, he engages the conversation of, could we please stop with the idea that everybody we disagree with is a freaking fascist or a Nazi?
I grew up in a conservative part of Pennsylvania, and I grew up and I know and I love people that voted for President Trump. But they are not fascists. They're not Nazis. They're not trying to destroy the Constitution and those things. And that's part of another thing. I refuse to call people Nazis or fascists, or I would never compare anybody to Hitler and those things. And now that kinds of extreme rhetoric is going to continue. We're going to be more likely in resulting in extreme kind of outcomes and political violence and doing all these kinds of things like Charlie Kirk. For me, all I could say is like, let people grieve.
Let's leave it there for a second. I wouldn't call them fascists. I wouldn't call them Nazis. First of all, interesting, he's the only Democrat in his family. That's actually very, very interesting. But here he is having a conversation of these are the things we shouldn't do. And it is here where he gets into the conversation about Charlie Kirk that I think for a lot of people who may still be kind of dismissive of him and wary, I think wary would be the better word here, wary of this from a Democrat. Do I really believe it? He's got this.
Give people the space. I'm not going to use that terrible thing and that Pasek assassination to make my argument and try to put out my views. It's like, my God, you know, he's a father that had his neck blown out by a bullet. And now people have forgotten. President Trump was in my state, was shot in the head. And if that would have, could you imagine where our nation would be if he was hit in the same way with Kirk? We really got to turn the temperature down. And we can shutting down the government. I just can't take it that.
A whole conversation about toning down the rhetoric. You've heard me say that I don't buy into that argument of toning down the rhetoric. I don't. And the reason that I don't is, what rhetoric am I supposed to tone down? Am I supposed to tone down, as I've stated, the truth that men are not women and women are not men? I won't do that. Am I supposed to tone down the rhetoric of we should not have any quarter, any allowance for illegal immigration, and we should be all in on strengthening legal immigration for people who actually want to be Americans, live the American way of life, and love being in America? I'm not toning down that rhetoric, not for a second. Toning down the rhetoric is what gets said to make you, who isn't shooting at anybody, stop talking. But I will take Senator Fetterman here at his very honest word that he actually wants to see these things happen. I was very happy to hear him say it. I was very happy to hear him put it out there. I'm not going to get him to agree with me on trans issues. I don't know if I'm going to get him to agree with me on the border issue or on financial. But those would be disagreements. And in some way, they're very, very rough disagreements. Not ones where I think we're going to be buddy-buddy afterwards. But my gosh, just to hear people on the other side of the aisle having the conversation this way, earnestly, is good. And what you need to remember is for that, he will be thrown out. They will work overtime to remove him from any position of power. Remove him from the Senate race. End his career for not being in the tent of one mind. As many a black Republican has explained over the years, C.L. Bryant and others, the thing that Democrats hate most is when people get off the plantation. I don't think truer words have ever been said. Keep it here. I'm Tony Katz, and this is Tony Katz Today. So, Kathleen, it's not that we're not the ones who need to tone down anything. You could find somebody who you could say, whoa, you're here, you need to be here. Just need to, right? We could do a full Ross on Friends. Could just, yeah, it's just like that. But as a matter of policy, I don't need to tone down any policy conversation. They're the ones saying it's okay if someone threatens somebody else's kids. They're the ones who look at Luigi Mangione there and they're like, well, what are you going to do? He killed the United Healthcare CEO. What are you going to do? That's them. And so, yes, to that end, they have to be the ones who tone it down. 10,000%. The Senate is in session right now. When did this happen? Is Caroline Levitt speaking to reporters and no one told me? She is.
Have a response to the court case that prevented your shutdown rifts going through. Does that take away the president's leverage to end the shutdown?
I'm so glad you asked because I have a very strong response. This is another far left partisan judge who was smacked down by the Supreme Court in July.
Oh gosh, I haven't gotten to the judge yet. Oh crap.
Thing. In May, this judge tried to say that the President of the United States does not have the executive authority to hire and fire in the executive branch. Literally, nobody would ever try to make that argument except for someone who is extremely partisan. And of course, the Supreme Court rejected that ruling in July, and they said, no, the president does have the ability and the legal authority to fire people from the federal government. That is a responsibility of his job as the head of the executive branch. And so you have the same judge going back to the bench and ruling on the basis of politics. We are 100% confident we will win this on the merits of the law, and these layoffs are an unfortunate consequence of the government shutdown. We are now on day 16 of this Democrat shutdown. Democrats just voted again for the 10th time to keep the government closed and to keep the American people hostage. And we're seeing the consequences of it every day. We've had thousands of flights delayed and canceled. Air traffic controllers, TSA agents continue to work without pay. The president tapped into tariff revenue to keep WIC money for women and infants and children going out the door. The president found a creative solution to keep the troops paid. And rather than congratulate the president for doing that, this unprecedented action to get our troops paid, the Democrats want to sue him for it. They're saying that it's illegal. This just shows they don't care about the people who are hurting. They are shutting down the government purely for partisan politics because they don't like Donald Trump. And the only people that are suffering from that are federal government employees who are being laid off from their jobs, who are not being paid for their jobs, our military, our federal law enforcement, and the American people who can't catch a plane with holiday season coming up because flights are being delayed and canceled. Democrats need to do the right thing. And I don't know if you guys caught the CNN town hall last night with AOC and Bernie Sanders, but I sure did. And it's very clear that they are now the leaders of the Democrat Party. And the Democrats are in complete disarray. And we hope a few moderate Democrats with some common sense will step up to the plate and do the right thing to vote to open the federal government.
Thank you.
And sure, now she leaves as we come back to the radio show. That's crazy, Caroline. So Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary, was just speaking to the gaggle outside of the White House and made mention of a judge. If you head over to TonyKatz.com in just a few moments, you will see the show sheet appear right before your eyes. You can get it every day if you subscribe at TonyKatz.com. It's free to do. You can be a supporter. I'd appreciate it, but you don't have to. I can appreciate that too. It is there, TonyKatz.com. And the top story that I have is about this judge. This this U.S. District Court judge, Susan Yvonne Ilston, said that the Trump administration cannot fire workers during the government shutdown. It's a TRO. This coming days after the administration issued reduction in force notifications to more than 4,000 federal workers. Russ Vought of the Office of Management and Budget has said you could see upwards of 10,000 or more federal workers losing their gigs. The order blocks the administration, as reported by CNBC, from taking any action to follow through with those workers' terminations or to issue further RIFs, reductions in force. Quote, the activities that are being undertaken here are contrary to the laws. You can't do this in a nation of laws. And we have laws here. And the things that are being articulated here are not within the law. I will give this judge $100 billion if she says law one more time. Who is this judge to make this determination? What authority do you have to tell the White House during a government shutdown whether or not people have to have a job? What is it? What laws are you now pointing to? She called the firings unprecedented, saying, quote, it is also far from normal for an administration to fire line-level civilian employees during a government shutdown as a way to punish the opposing political party. Disbar her. Remove from the bench, remove from being able to ever engage in the law profession. What made you think this was about the opposing party? And what made you think you get to decide the reason? Why do you get to decide the reason? The president of the United States, as I see it, can fire anybody within the federal government. The president decides to fire anytime the president chooses, as long as they're an employee and not, let's say, an elected official. And there might be a procedure that one needs to go through. But this is unprecedented. Who cares if it's unprecedented? What does that matter? You can only do the thing that existed prior. What existed prior got us to the place we're in now, and the place we're in now is not any good. So you need to do something different to get out of the place you are now. Well, no, you can't do that. That's what this judge is saying. That's what this judge is saying. And that is madness. Absolute madness. You want more madness? I'll give it to you. The 10-year Treasury today dropped below 4%. Now, I don't know where it's going to end up. But this is barrier number one. The 10-year Treasury under 4%, just so we're all on the same page, the 10-year Treasury makes up the basis of the 30-year fixed mortgage. So you take the 10-year Treasury, there's a basis point spread, a percentage spread, and that's how you get the 30-year fixed. In June, you had, for example, a 10-year Treasury that was 4.31. You had a 30-year fix of 6.77, so it was a spread of 250 basis points, give or take, 2.5%. Every 100 basis points is a percent. So now you see a 30-year, a 10-year Treasury at 3 point, what was it? 3 point what? 8, No, it was over here. 3.988. So let's call it 4%. That brings the rate down to 6.5. Which means if you can get yourself to the 3.5 number, the spread can change. You would be starting to see interest rates under 6%. Now, yes, for those of us who have a level of history to these things, whether we were homeowners, 20 years ago or what have you, it's still a high interest rate. Historically speaking, not at all. Historically speaking, America went through 13% interest, 17% interest in buying a house. But you start getting under 6, psychologically, you start getting people buying. You start getting people selling, which is a weird part of this real estate market, that people who would normally sell their home and downsize, then you'd have people desperate to have a larger home for their growing family. They're not selling. There's no place to go. Rates are too high. There's no place to go. We already live here. I don't have to pack anything. Forget it. So you start cracking under 6, you'll spur a lot of that. What's his name from Shark Tank? Kevin O'Leary thinks 5.5 is the magic number. That's when everything goes crazy. Get this thing under 6, and we'll see. This is Tony Katz Today. Welcome back, everybody. Tony Katz. Tony Katz. Did I just get myself set up for what comes next? President Trump having a conversation with Vladimir Putin. That is taking place, and I've got the Stephen A. Smith audio to share with you. Is that still playing? No, it's not. Good. And what else do I have? What else do I have going on? All right, we're 1 minute to the show, which is super fantastic. It's a fun show. I get to do this for a living. It ain't so bad. Ain't so bad in the slightest. 30 seconds. I hear there, producer Landon. President Trump posting on Truth Social, I have just concluded my telephone conversation with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. And it was a very productive one, says President Trump. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. Find everything over at TonyKatz.com. Live streaming on Twitter X, Tony Katz, YouTube, Tony Katz, Facebook, Tony Katz Radio. Subscribe, be a part of it. President Putin congratulated me in the United States on the great accomplishment of peace in the Middle East, something that he said he had dreamed of for centuries, or has been dreamed of for centuries. Not that he had dreamed of for centuries. Better. Quote, I actually believe that the success of the Middle East will help in our negotiation in attaining an end to the war with Russia-Ukraine. President Putin thanked the First Lady, Melania, for her involvement with children. He was very appreciative and said that this will continue. We also spent a great deal of time talking about trade between Russia and the United States when the war with Ukraine is over. At the conclusion of the call, we agreed that there will be a meeting of our high-level advisors next week. The United States' initial meetings will be led by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, together with various other people to be designated. A meeting location is to be determined. President Putin and I will then meet in an agreed upon location, Budapest, Hungary, to see if we can bring this inglorious war between Russia and Ukraine to an end. President Zelensky and I will be meeting tomorrow in the Oval Office, where we will discuss my conversation with President Putin and much more. I believe great progress was made with today's telephone conversation. That from President Trump, from when I'm speaking 20 minutes ago, a little bit after 1 p.m. Eastern time is when President Trump put that out. I don't know, because I don't know. I wasn't on the phone call. I do not know what to expect. But we will we'll see what the meaning is. We'll see what comes from it. Let me, as I said to you, a few things I want to share. First is a level of delusion so great, so grand, so perfectly Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is delusional, ladies and gentlemen. The former vice president, in an interview with Kara Swisher, who I believe is New York Times these days, this was a conversation about Kamala Harris's resume, about running for president. And Swisher asked, was it time constraints that affected the ability for people to know you, which is, of course, weird because she had been vice president for 4 years. But Kamala Harris states, no, it's not that simple. I mean, it's about, yes, getting to know me and my background and what I've done. The fact that I was elected district attorney for 2 terms as the first woman elected attorney general of the state of California. I was a United States senator, second black woman elected in the history of the United States Senate, and I was the first woman vice president of the United States. So there are those things that I needed to make sure that people knew. So a large part of her resume is the fact that she doesn't have a penis. That's a tremendous amount of what I say. I'm just saying that she thinks that her being a woman and she thinks her being black is a huge part of her resume, not necessarily what she accomplished in those roles, but just these things about her. these. Yeah, I know it's weird. I'm not saying no. I'm not saying, but I'm saying she's saying that a large part of her career is because she doesn't have a penis. That's what she's saying. So I'm relaying that to people. At that moment, Kara Swisher is like, okay, that's a decent resume, which brings about this exchange right here.
That is
And-
a decent. That is a decent
but-
resume. But go ahead.
But there, well, some people have actually said I was the most qualified candidate ever to run for president.
I like I like the some people say. Very nice. But go ahead.
I'm just speaking fact.
Yeah.
You know, there are moments when I'm doing the show that I'm so absolutely out of my head, disgusted with what I hear. I so desperately want to scream and say things that one cannot say on radio, that I have come to realize that if I just play the theme from the television show Taxi, breathe deep, relax, and enjoy the incredible flute playing. Yeah, it usually makes everything better. And then we'll get back on with the show. No one in the history of ever said that Kamala Harris, the most qualified candidate ever to run for president. No one ever said it, ever. Doug Emhoff never said it. It never got said by anyone, anywhere. It is a ridiculous statement. It is a lie. It is silly. It is embarrassing. It is perfectly Kamala Harris, ladies and gentlemen. Insane stuff. Not insane stuff was this from Stephen A. Smith. I'll say it again. I'm not a fan. He's never been my guy over there at ESPN. But he did something in the town hall last night there that News Nation had. Right there was the town hall on CNN. I mean, the CNN town hall was chock full of silliness. I mean, this from Representative Ocasio-Cortez.
Target and exploit a generation of young boys, in particular, away from healthy masculinity and into an insecure masculinity that requires the domination of others who are poorer, browner, darker, or
Representative Ocasio-Cortez knows absolutely nothing about masculinity. And to say this,
away from healthy masculinity and into an insecure masculinity that requires the domination of others.
you're talking about the men who claim to be women and tell women in sports to lose their positions and tell other women to deal with them in the locker rooms. That's what you're talking about. Because you're not talking about me. You're not talking about the men in America who come home from their first job just to see how the kids are doing with their homework, give their wife a kiss, and go to their second job. That's not who you're talking about. That's not who you're talking about. What the hell do you know about masculinity? What possibly could you know about what men do and how men think and how men act? Which brings us to Stephen A. Smith, because one of the people at this town hall was an air traffic controller isn't able to work because of the shutdown. And what is he doing? DoorDash. Maybe he's doing it for a side hustle. Maybe he's doing it to make ends meet. But the rant, if you will, that Stephen A. Smith goes on isn't special because it's the same one you've done on the bar stool, sitting on your couch at the kitchen table. You have said this in a multiplicity of ways. Stephen A. Smith just has the microphone and the television camera on him. And he said what you're saying.
We're listening to this kind of stuff while a young man walked up to the microphone and said that he had to leave here to go and work on DoorDash to help pay for his daughter's tuition. Meanwhile, everybody up here getting paid.
It's Stephen A. Smith. It's Bill O'Reilly. It's a Representative Jim Jordan, Representative Ro Khanna, and I forget the name of the other congresswoman there. So forgive me. They're all on the stage. Absolutely. And they're all getting paid. And he continues.
But he ain't. This is this kind of stuff right here. That's how you know, and I'm not accusing any of you directly or personally of feeling this way. I'm just talking about the apparatus that is Washington, the nation's capital. This is why you have so many Americans, excuse my language, so pissed off at Washington, because somehow, some way you get to have these conversations, engage in specific elements of it to talk about what we need to do to get things better. Our debt is $37.8 trillion. Somehow, some way, the taxpayer's been paying this, been throwing money, because we all look at our check, and it's been going to the government. And somehow, some way, you're supposed to be doing something constructive and productive enough to make sure that we don't have that kind of deficit. It isn't happening. A government shutdown is going on right now. A man has to work on DoorDash when he's really an air traffic controller that we applauded. And we're up here talking about how much some money is going to cost. And the only person that don't have a check coming is him. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take a break.
And he walked off the stage. That from Newsbusters right there. There's nothing that he said that you haven't said before. I just want to be clear about that. What he said is not revolutionary. But I am appreciative that he said it, that he took that opportunity. We are not getting our money's worth when it comes to the people we elect and the things that we need done, these basics. We're not. And that is how a lot of Americans feel. In the meantime, it continues. In the meantime, there is no end to the shutdown in sight. Unless it's going to end with the No Kings rally. An interesting story. I'll get to that next. Keep it here. This is Tony Katz Today. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a serious issue. Producer Landon, in my ear right here, just informed me that he's never seen a Diane Keaton film. And I said, because Diane Keaton, it turns out, passed away of pneumonia. And she had been ill and some other issues, seemingly. And I said, you never saw Father of the Bride? And he said, no. I said, you've never seen Annie Hall? And he's like, no. He's never seen Annie Hall. He goes, wait, she was in The Godfather? I'm like, yeah, of course, she's Kay in The Godfather. To which he says, I've never seen The Godfather. So I'm looking for a new producer. Because you can't, no, Landon, stop talking. You, okay, Fredo? You stop talking. I'm going to call you Fredo until you see the movie and you realize what level of insult that is. What in the world? What man card do you think you possibly have if you... I don't even know what I'm supposed to say about that. No idea. No idea what I'm supposed to. I am outraged. What is this? Tony, you were the reason I chose to stop being liberal and the reason I continue to believe on justice, or in, I'm going to assume, justice, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. No pressure, though. Wow. Look at that. Seriously, thank you, but, good for you. I hope you're finding happiness. I hope you're engaged in studying, and when we disagree, I hope you'll say so. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Truly, I appreciate that. Look at that. I got so wrapped up in learning that producer Landon has never seen The Godfather, I forgot what I was going to talk about. I mean, I'm in levels of outrage at the moment. He has never, ever seen The Godfather. No, ladies, no, you do not date producer Landon until he's seen The Godfather. You don't date anybody who hasn't seen The Godfather. And Godfather 2. Godfather 3, you don't have to watch. It's totally fine. I will allow that. Tony Katz today. Good to be with you. I swear to you, so outraged, I forgot what I was going to talk about. That is something. That is completely something. It made me forget my place. I do have this unique story about The View. Someone will remind me what I was going to talk about, and I'll hit it really quick. The View did something very strange. The View, the ladies of The View go to the show and say, they'd like to have more Republicans on the show, but they're too scared to come on. They might be too scared to be a regular host on the show because every day you all beat them up. Elizabeth Hasselbeck, Meghan McCain, to the extent Alyssa Farah is even a conservative. Maybe that, but who is afraid to come on The View? You had Bill O'Reilly on The View and two of you walked off the set. Who's afraid here? But I noticed that this is now two, and it's not yet a trend, but rather it is interesting, maybe a data point. It was Jimmy Kimmel the other day who stated that, oh, sure, he'd have Trump on the air. He'd have Trump on the show, which was a very, very clearly this kind of begging to get him on, right? Ratings are awful. Ratings are terrible. Now you've got The View. I put forth to you that a missive has come forth from ABC, especially after having to pay out the $16 million to Trump. And of course, what Stephanopoulos and how he acted with JD Vance the other day, which, the real question is, why do Republicans still go on the show with George Stephanopoulos? They have to stop. I think the missive has come forth from ABC that you need to get more Republicans on your airwaves because that means ratings. Maybe it means Trump will leave us alone, but it certainly means ratings possibilities and bringing an audience back. Somewhere there's a note. I'd bet on it. I'm Tony Katz. I would bet on it that is the case. Somewhere, some executive is like, you know what you got to do? I'll tell you what you got to do. Let's talk about what it is you got to do, because this has to be done. What you have to do is go to TonyKatz.com and subscribe. Do that right now. Subscribe at TonyKatz.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, subscribe there as well. Greatly appreciate it. Building and growing. Can't thank you enough. So tomorrow I'm out. I'm back on Monday. Might come up with a new studio look. Been messing around with that. My problem is I do the sound and everything else, but I'd love to have. I've got a cool look. I'm trying to think of other ways to do it. So I might try things from time to time, see how it goes. Yes, wore the jacket. If you watch the first tonight with Sean Spicer, the Sean Spicer show, this is what I was wearing, and so I just kept it on. I look good. Yes, I do. I appreciate you being here. Go to TonyKatz.com and subscribe. I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And I can't thank you guys enough for being here, for being a part of this. I'm back on Monday. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll catch you then, y'all. And the radio show continues at WIBC.com. You should go be a part of that. Kira Davis sits in the chair tomorrow, so listen for that. It's going to be fantastic. Monday, everyone. Take care.